Okay, go ahead, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, who you help, all of those things.
Okay. Hi, I'm Katherin Elli Grace, and I'm a soul contract reader. And many of you may not know what a soul contract is. Well, before you were born, your soul, chose what experiences and lessons you wanted to have in this lifetime. Then you encoded it into your birth name, the sound of your birth name, and then you forgot about it when you were born. So it's kind of you're flailing around in the dark. So what I do as a reader is I go in and I decode your birth name, and we discover your soul contract and uncover what those lessons are, what your talents and gifts are, and what your life purpose is, so that you can glean clarity and direction, and you can create a different reality. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And my background is as a nurse. I was a nurse for over 40 years and burnout, retired, and decided that I needed an adventure. So I relocated, sold everything, relocated to Panama, which is where I am now. That was 6 years ago. And I'm here in Panama. And instead of the retired life, I was kind of propelled on a self-discovery awakening journey. So that is when I had my own soul contract reading, and it was just so impactful and changed my life. And so I've now made it my mission to help others achieve their own transformations. So yeah, I'm a nurse. I'm not a business person. I'm not particularly techie here in my, 6 decade, almost 7 decades of life, starting over, so to speak. But I love to learn and grow. And I thank you, Lori, for having me on today, so that I can talk about my passion and my mission.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, this is the part where I usually ask people like how you got into doing what you're doing, but you kind of already answered that, I think. So I want to ask you in terms of networking, I know you've done a lot of offline networking. What kind of events have you found super helpful, especially being in a spiritual niche like you are?
Good question. Well, because I was a nurse, so science-based, and friends and family are kind of that type of people, those types of people. I was a little nervous coming on and, talking about spirituality, though I've been a spiritual seeker for most of my life, but, in the closet, sort of. And one of the things with my soul contract is that the change in me that you're seeing now was not who I was before I had that soul contract reading. I would hide in the corner. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be visible. So part of my journey, part of my soul contract is to come out of isolation, be seen, stand in my power, speak my truth. And so it's been really kind of difficult because I'm not really tech savvy at this point. And I tried online networking with doing the social media. I have a 30 some odd followers on Facebook page. And there's here in Panama, there's WhatsApp groups. So I would post in WhatsApp groups and Facebook pages. I would try and find spiritual communities and post on that. Didn't really feel comfortable doing it, not great as far as content writing, because it's nice to see people one-to-one. So that's when I started to look and do the offline events. And I started out doing a presentation. I had done a reading for a client that was administrator of a conscious coffee group here in Panama. So she asked me to speak. So I went and I did a presentation, and we kind of went through her chart and explained her chart so that others could understand. And I enjoyed that. So I really got to feel more comfortable. So I have also done, there is an English speaking radio show, a breakfast show here that the owner and host of interviewed me on. So that was interesting. And then I did recently a Christmas market. I was a vendor at a Christmas market and I did many readings. And I really enjoy, again, I really enjoy meeting people face to face. And yeah. So, and I've just recently started doing podcasts. Um, I just did a Fear to Freedom Project podcast speaking about fear. I was a panelist. And so I was really thrilled when you asked me to do this with you. So thank you. It takes a lot to get out of my comfort zone, but I feel like I'm gaining traction with um, each event that I do.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. Like the first interview that I did, it was kind of uncomfortable. And then, like, the more stuff I did, the more comfortable I got with it. Although every time is new. So there's always the little bit of that.
Mhm. But I think that's where we have to show our authenticity. This is how I look at it. The more authentic you can be, we're not perfect, and we're out here because we really, at least I'm out here because I really feel that this is important information and that it can help somebody else. And that's really what I'm here in this lifetime to do, is help people that have been through adversity like I've been through, or, just help people. So I think being authentic and being vulnerable makes you more real to people.
I'm just curious because I know you talked about these soul contract readings. How can a person tell if they're on purpose or off purpose?
Well, if you're off purpose, that's when you have the challenges. So like when you're going down the wrong path, that's when you start getting the nudges, you start getting, then you don't get those, you start getting the 2x4s up the head, up the side of the head. And then, as what happened to me, I got run over by the spiritual map truck because I was just trying to, ignore and avoid and do what I wanted to do and control situations. So yeah, when we get off our path, that's when our life starts to go badly. But when we're in, and we have to work at it. And sometimes the more we try and work at something, it makes it worse. It doesn't change. So we're on like this hamster wheel, or I say it's like experiencing Groundhog Day every day. So yeah, once you're in the flow and you're in alignment with your purpose and your soul's destiny, and you're working on your lessons, because you're always going to have lessons, but you can't ignore those lessons. They're not going to go away. That's why they get louder and louder. But when you're on your path and aligned, that's when you seem to be in the flow, and you'll see synchronicities and you'll see opportunities come to you, and you don't have to force it. That's been my experience. The difference between my life prior to the soul contract reading and my life now. Not that it's always in the flow, but
Yeah, I've had where I had like a major course correction, but then I realized, ooh, there's some minor course corrections I also need to make.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think what I found with the soul contract reading is that you have this deeper understanding of your life. You find out who you really are at your core and what you're really here to do, and why those things happen to you, those challenges happen to you. And the soul contract also tells you what your gifts are so that you can help work through those things, and it makes your life way easier. It's like having your blindfold on. We're coming out, we're just kind of going through life by default. But when you start making different choices because you have a different meaning, you have a different understanding of your life, that's when your life starts to change and get easier.
How is the way that you network? Well, you kind of answered this, changed over time in terms of like before you were a business owner until like after.
Oh, how I networked before. Well, I was a nurse. I was employed, in various hospitals and insurance companies and things. I did do some networking at that time, but not in the same capacity as being a business owner. Um, and I do also attend, they have networking events here. They have like digital nomad groups here. So they have international communities. So I do attend those. Volunteering, I do volunteering and fundraisers um, for a couple of reasons. I want to kind of give back and I want to support the country that I'm in. So I've done various had volunteer opportunities. And yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I keep going to because you like sometimes you just like, oh, you already answered that. So that would be kind of a strange way to ask it.
Well, maybe that's me knowing what you're going to ask next.
That might
So
be
we're
it.
on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted?
This is a great question because I would tell you my dad was an introvert, my mom was an extrovert. And so I used to grow up saying I'm an introverted extrovert when I'm, doing the homebody thing. And I'm an extroverted introvert when I'm out and doing my networking or out with friends. And recently I heard the term ambivert, which is both. So I am now an ambivert. And because I have one of my creation codes in my soul contract chart is an 8, and the 8s don't like to be here on the planet even. So they want to like hide away. They're homebodies, they isolate. So I really have to push myself out of my comfort zone. And when I told you that I sold everything and wanted this new adventure after I retired, that actually still surprises me to this day that I did that. That was before I knew my soul contract chart. But I lived with a lot of fear and uncertainty and didn't feel safe. So it was safe to have that job. So when I gave my resignation, that's when I was run over by the spiritual Mack truck. Just everything started to go wrong in my life. And I knew I had to make a big change. So that's when I resigned. And then I moved down here. So that's a huge step. And I think that's where the awakening started so that I could kind of come out of my shell. So it's become, I'm more, I guess to sum it up, I'm more of an extrovert now than I ever was.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I think of myself as an ambivert, and I used to think I was super introverted, and then I realized some of that introversion was just feeling uncomfortable and not really wanting to be super introverted. And then I realized people who are like really introverted, they're more like they they do have these conversations, but they're just kind of more like one-on-one with like one person, and they get really involved. And they're also the other thing with introversion is kind of this feeling drained. Like I can only take so much social time and then I'm feeling drained. Whereas I find it like as an ambivert, I need that alone time, but it's like I also need to have that time with others. And sometimes that actually recharges me being around not every situation, but being around the right people.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that was another thing with my move to Panama by myself. I initially, for 3 years, lived in a smaller town that had more expats. And so that was a great place for me to land, to get to know people and get my feet on the ground. But then I moved to the big city, to Panama City. So it was more difficult to meet people. And then you add in that spirituality part, and it's even more difficult, or has been, to like attract my tribe. And part of that is, my journey is to work on myself to attract those people. So yeah.
It's so important to have that realization. because
Yeah.
I know people who they're like, I think of the spiritual path as just kind of ending in that being a hermit state. And I'm like, doesn't really end there.
There is no end, okay? That's what I
Yeah.
learned. I used to just put my head down and sprint towards that elusive finish line. And I know there is no finish line. And I will tell you that this path, this spirituality path, isn't one that I necessarily would have chosen. As I said, I would be behind the chair, under the desk, just, get me to that finish line. But when it's put upon you. This is your contract. This is what you're here to do, and you can't not do it. And then even once you start it, it's hard work to look at yourself and look at all your flaws and your fault, all of this stuff that's happened to you. And then once you start, it just, you got to keep going and going. And you're kind of, push. There's some energy there behind you. Your soul is pushing you. So, yeah, it makes it interesting.
Do you prefer networking in groups or having more one-to-one conversations?
Um, I would have told you one-on-one. And sometimes I guess I really relate to what you were saying about sometimes the introvert extrovert, because sometimes, yes, I like to just do one-on-one. And then sometimes I want to get out and I want to share, and I'm good with the energy in the room, I guess. Because it does kind of re-energize me. It's my purpose, and I guess I feel fulfillment when I'm speaking about it. So I think I don't think in my head, oh my God, there's 100 people in the room versus, one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you say getting comfortable, being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set?
I think it's part of life, period. I don't think it's necessarily just an entrepreneur skill set, but indeed it is. What I have found is I was kind of naive with this business because I really found so much value in what I'm doing. I thought you start the business and, like Kevin Costner said, build it and they will come. Well, no, they don't. No, and it's not an easy thing. And what I also learned from the soul contract reading is you are not your business, but that business is a relationship. And so just like a relationship with you or a partner or a family member, you've got to build that business with or build that relationship with your business. So it's been quite an eye opener. I mean, it's like the spiritual awakening thing, that's not big enough. Now we got to add this business to it. So it's just like, whoa, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see where this all goes.
I think that makes sense. It's kind of like another another sort of realization.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on tapping into your intuition when networking?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the eights in my chart. I have some codes in my chart. I am very intuitive. I have always been able to feel how somebody's going to react. Like, I don't exactly know how to explain it, but I know if I say something to you, I kind of know how you're going to take it. And I can feel other people's energies. Now, growing up, I remember having this growing up and thinking, how come they don't know what what their action is doing to me or whatever it was. But I thought everybody had this ability. And then I didn't realize until, recently that this is a gift that I had. And it's interesting because, as I said, sometimes I listen, and if the intuition, to tell me what my next step is, I really want to strengthen my connection to my higher self and to my intuition. And I feel things in my gut. Where do you feel things? Can I ask?
Yeah, I feel that gut, that feeling of like, oh, this is the thing or this is not. Sometimes I have to take a little time and do like a little muscle testing or, do a little more reading into it if I'm not sure, especially if there's like a lot of emotions and stuff, then I kind of need to sort that out. But once I know what it is, then I know what it is and I'm like, okay, that's the direction.
That's great. That's great. And you're much younger than me, and it's great that you're learning to be aware of that. Because here I am in my 60s and I haven't been in my body. I'm always in my head, very analytical, you know. I just I don't want to feel things in my body. So that's another thing that I'm here to do is get out of my head and feel it. So I'm learning how to feel in my body. And I've always known when it isn't right, but I don't always listen. So I also know things. I just have knowings. And I think like this move to Panama, I had no clue why I would be moving to Panama. I never had any idea that I would move to a foreign country. Didn't really know much about Panama. But inside there was like this knowing. And once I gave my resignation and started the process to move here, it was like I was in the flow and things came into my life that I don't know why I didn't see them before. And so, yeah, that intuition has helped me a lot. But a lot of times, and you may do the same thing. If we hear something that we don't like, if I hear something I don't like, I ignore it, or I think that doesn't make any sense. And so I'm very much to stay safe. I'm kind of a control freak sometimes, and I want to, do things my way. And I think I know what the outcome's going to be because I'm in my head, right? Instead of being in my body and realizing, oops, that's that stomach there, that pit in the bottom of your stomach says not good, instead of, going forward with it and then getting run over by the spiritual Mack truck or something. But when I'm doing readings, the readings, I do connect with others. I call them spirit teams. And I'm much better at helping other people than getting my own messages at this point.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. There's something about it because sometimes when you're just in your own head with these things, you're not asking yourself the right questions. And that's one of the things I do is I ask people questions that they probably wouldn't have thought on their own. And so then they can be like, oh, because they already know the answer. They just didn't have the question to ask themselves.
Ah, yes, yes. Or we asked the right question, and like I said, we didn't like the answer, or we avoided it, or there was some subconscious resistance. Have you ever noticed that? It's like I know what I'm supposed to do next, but I don't want to do it. It might be like I want to do this interview, but like today, it was like a really quick decision, oh, it's today, and so you push yourself and you get on and you do it and you have a lovely time like we're having. But yeah, there's times when there's resistance and it's a subconscious thing, maybe from a past life, especially with the spiritual pieces. If you were spiritual in a past life, some people got persecuted for that. Probably most of us in one past life or another. So that sticks with us and that gets into our DNA and it gets in our head. And so we react sometimes without even knowing why.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that emotions are separate from your intuition because
Mm,
emotions can also come from like past experiences and things that
yeah.
don't really relate to the situation. So separating that out from intuition is like it's a skill set.
It absolutely is. And the thing that you just mentioned, we use past experiences when we're in our head because our brain can only compute what we've experienced. So it doesn't have that AI thinking. No, not AI, that's not even a good, but it doesn't have the higher intuition. So our higher self can think outside the box, but there's a box that our mind can think in. And it's always trying to go to the negative. I don't know about you, but I have quite a little negative recording going on most of the time. So, well, you can't do that. Who are you to say that? So yeah, yeah, it's much easier if you can just sit back and give up that control, surrender, and allow the information to come.
Did you make online connections that you invested too much time into when you were networking, or not really?
No, I didn't. There wasn't a lot of connection online. I think we all, and that's what I like about, again, I keep referring back to the soul contract, but it shows me that I'm better relating to people in person or, face to face, versus behind this machine. And I think maybe it's my age too. I didn't grow up with a lot of tech stuff. And so it seems impersonal to me. So I'm sure that's, kind of going through my head as well. And really, energy is your first language. Okay. Before you say anything or you post anything, when you are meeting someone, our energies mesh. And so whether you consciously know it or not, you're getting a sense of my energy and vice versa. And we get that feeling, you know. So if I'm coming from a place of, I really don't like this social media, I really don't like posting, I'm not sure my content is right, then that gives that vibration, that frequency of she's feeling like, ew, and she doesn't like to do this, instead of the confidence and the certainty and the passion that I can sit here and speak to you about. It would never come through on my social media post. It didn't used to. That's how I want to say it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm curious if you've invested in any kind of marketing or networking groups or anything like that.
I have. And I think we share one, Jamie's group. I love Jamie. And now there is energy. I mean, her energy is so vivacious and bubbly and fun. And yeah, she's definitely a forward thinker. Um, but again, I think we all have to find our own way. I, in particular, have felt like, even with what I'm doing, the soul contract reading, I think there's a variation of it that, and I will grow. I'll start with the soul contract reading, and then I'll either add a variation, my own variation to, or it will blossom into something else. So I think with marketing, it's the same thing for me. I want to do things my way, and I want to think outside of the box to do it. I don't want to like follow everybody else, because I don't think it works for everybody. I think we have our own we have our own ways um, within. So it's kind of an adventure to find out. And it's been good. It's been a learning experience. I see what I like, what I don't like. And then other opportunities have come into my life from just stepping out and doing these things. Oh, I remember doing that breakfast show, that radio show. Ooh, I got out of there and I was like, oh my God, I just made a fool of myself, but I can't even listen to the replay. They sent me the replay and said it was great. And I can't even listen to the replay. It's been months.
Anything else you want to add? Because I'm kind of out of questions at this point.
Okay. Well, I just, you know what I do want to just quickly say, because for those people that read your Facebook post about the networking, you're either born with it or you're not. What I want to add is that in the soul contract charts, there are creation codes that are networkers. These people are here to be networkers. Now, in the chart, there's both, because the earth is duality, there's polarity, so negative and positive things. The positive of the number 7 is the networker. Okay, they're very charismatic, they're very magnetic, they're like Angie's List, and you probably don't even know Angie's List, but it's like they bring together resources. So you and you would bring me to your followers, and maybe there's somebody that could use me, and vice versa. They don't do it as a leader, but they do it as a team. And the negative part of that are people like me that wanted to hide behind the chair. They don't want to be seen. They wear masks. So they have a public persona, and then they have their persona where they, when they're at home in private or with, people that they trust and feel safe with, they take off the masks, and that's a different person. But they're really trying to keep the mask on because they don't feel safe. They feel like they've done something, and if people find out who they truly are, they'll be rejected. So I just wanted to add that little ditty about the networkers, because when they work through that, they'll realize that they're not terrible people, but it's kind of a worthiness issue. It kind of goes a little deeper. So they have to build their worthiness, and they have to take off the mask and be authentic and real and vulnerable. And then people will just flock to them like that magnetic, charismatic person that they are. So if anybody wants to know if they're a true networker or not, or they're interested in soul contract reading, finding out who they are at their true core, who their soul has who they're here to be and do, then I'd love to read their soul contract for them.
I think everybody does do networking, just maybe not to the same extent.
Exactly. Well, there's some, what I guess I'm trying to say are they're natural born networkers that don't even, it's not like they're trying or they have to find their venue. It's just whatever they do, wherever they go, they're just like magnets. That was what I was trying to explain. But others of us have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, and we have to work at it and find what works best.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I think that's it. I'm just very glad to be here, and I hope that something, that I've said has been of value to another person. And again, I thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming to this interview.
Thank you for having me.